Hey, when giving to charity, most of us like to know exactly where that money is going and who it's going to help out. But how much do you really know about the panhandlers on Utah streets when you hand them cash out your window? Well, tonight a KSL 5 investigation into the business of begging. Up and down the Wasatch Front, it's tough to put a number on the amount of signs we see. Left, right, big, small, some up high, others down low. But the ones that seem to be most popular these days are at the off-ramps.
People don't give homeless people a chance.
And they are made of cardboard.
People drive by you, throw stuff at you, call you names, I don't want that.
But for panhandlers like Daniel and Ashley, it is the price of doing business, and business is often pretty good. They need money for food, for shelter, for a bus ticket home.
Says she's not from Utah, trying to get a bus ticket. Is that true?
No, that wasn't true.
So we checked out Ashley's Facebook page, and it shows Salt Lake is home. It reveals she went to Murray High. But the honesty issue goes deeper after a coworker posted this security photo taken by the phone that Ashley had just stolen. Court records show she fessed up to the crime and pled guilty to a couple of others for shoplifting. But Ashley is just one in what has become
There's so many more now.
an explosive trend.
It makes sense that somebody's figured out that you can make a lot of money on it.
Tom Jagers, just a regular guy who says he's seen the number of people begging on the streets skyrocket and believes that he has witnessed the scams.
It's a pretty shady way of doing business, and there's a lot of people that are shady in other ways, but at least pay your taxes.
But taxes are of little concern
I change spots every single night so people don't follow us.
for those who are legitimately out on the street. You may recognize this face on Temple Square. She says her name is Samantha Cole, and begging for money.
This is your first day of doing it? Oh, wow.
And nobody has been willing to help me.
Has been traumatic.
So you've never had to ask people for money?
No one is very degrading and humiliating and belittling and very scary.
Adding to the stress, Samantha says she has 2 kids in a Salt Lake elementary school, and if she does not make enough money for a cheap motel,
But as you can see, that's not really happening.
all 3 of them will be forced to suffer the elements of the night.
Just got a little room that got.
All right, Samantha's story is far from over. She says that she is homeless, supporting kids, and claims that the money that you give her does not go to drugs or alcohol. Coming up at 6, we're going to reveal the truth about Samantha. And then tonight at 10, 3 panhandlers, 3 stories, and the information they leave off of their signs that you need to know. Again, that's tonight at 10.
Eager to hear this because we have seen a real increase.
You want to know
panhandlers.
where your money's going. Everyone
Yeah.
wants to help out. You want to make sure it's going to the right place.
We see this every day. You stopped at a light, you look out the window, and there's someone holding a sign begging for money.
If you don't give, you feel guilty. If you do give, you wonder where is that money going? Tonight, investigative reporter Mike Hedrick gets the story behind the cardboard sign.
At the north entrance of Temple Square is a woman begging for money, in her words,
I've been out on the streets for about 2 weeks.
for the very first time. She says her name is Samantha Cole, and a bad business deal cost her everything but her 2 children.
Trying to give my kids a better life and made it worse. Sorry. I don't know what else to do.
Samantha's story is very convincing, and people graciously give her money. But there's a few things you should know about Samantha. We followed her around for a few days and watched her get into the passenger seat of this car. And what we found...
Mike Hedrick from KSL, I just spoke to you. Trying to find out about your story. Where are your kids? And who's this man?
Her name is not
really
Samantha.
homeless?
It's actually Evelyn Steed. Her children are not with her and do not sleep on the streets of Salt Lake. And this is not the first day that she has begged for money. Police reports show that she's been panhandling for years. And about a month ago, those same reports reveal Evelyn had been drinking so heavily she cannot remember what sent her to the emergency room.
If you're giving money to someone who's panhandling to help further their self-destructive behavior because they've got a substance problem, you're not really doing that person a lot of favors.
Jason Mathis is executive director of the Downtown Alliance and says a majority of panhandlers are not homeless. And what you see on the cardboard is often not the truth. He says the people of Utah are very charitable, and that could be the reason there are so many people begging for money.
There's no shortage of things that we can do to be helpful to people who truly need help, but giving money to a panhandler is not the best way to do that.
But people like Nick and Penny are hoping you give them the money anyway. In Sugar House, they take turns flying the homeless sign. Nick first, then Penny. When it's slow, Nick will talk on his cell phone and Penny will lay in a box. When it's really slow, he'll get in a car, go to the gas station, and come back with a bucket and squeegee ready for work. Their story is simple. homeless. The reality is, well, that's Nick walking out of this Tooele home, and that's Penny following suit. We caught up with Penny soon after, showing her a photo of Nick walking out of that house.
And I was just wondering if you knew who he was. You don't know this guy?
No, it looks like he's at my house.
Yeah, it looks like he's at your house. So you don't know him at all? You don't have a name or anything like that? Because I have a lot of video with you and him in Sugar House panhandling. So you must know this guy.
Oh, I don't know where he is. I don't have time to talk.
The reality is there are homeless and hungry here in Utah who need your help. But are you giving that help to the ones who honestly need it?
Mike's investigation is far from over. Tonight at 10, 3 panhandlers, 3 stories, and the information they leave off their signs that will affect the way you give.
This story's been months in the making and is fascinating,
Yeah.
so don't miss it at 10.
Yeah.
30 long seconds. That's about the time you have sitting at the light to make a decision. Do you give or do you awkwardly look away? It's a tough question with very little information. Entire stories summed up on a broken piece of cardboard. So before you give money to the next panhandler you see, watch as we go behind the cardboard story. Their stories are humbling. Their faces,
There ain't no way to describe how hard it is out here.
often scarred with despair. Homeless and hungry, jobless and stranded, they are begging for your help.
Just try to change for anything at all, please.
What's wrong?
I'm trying to get my children to safe places to sleep in a place where I won't get beaten up anymore.
But what would you do if the food you generously gave was tossed to the side? What would you think if the challenge to walk was not always such a challenge? And what would you say if at the end of the day a car is waiting to jump in and drive off? Well, if you're anything like Tom Jager,
I think he's a bad guy. If he's smart enough to do that, he's smart enough to go get a job.
it does not sit well. Jager says he's witnessed the business of begging firsthand. A car dropping off a crew of panhandlers in the morning and then picking them up at the end of their shift.
And I said, so are you really even homeless? And she goes, no, we have a house. I said, so you're basically just running a business where you're asking people for money? And she goes, yeah, basically.
But they can't all be scamming us, can they? What kind of person would say they have cancer if it were not true? Who would have the heart to pull out a couple of pictures of their kids
Those are my children.
if the money was not going to be used for them? And how could you spend hour after hour, day after day, enduring the humiliation that comes,
You know, people drive by you, throw stuff at you, call you names,
from begging for money?
First week I cried. I mean, I didn't want to go and do this, but it was our last resort and everything. And I mean, it's embarrassing.
That right there is Jamie, and she and her husband Robert have been on the street since he got hit in a head-on collision. And if you're not buying the story on his sign, proof of the accident,
Because at the beginning they were so deep that my shin bones were hanging out.
is not for the faint of heart. In the end, medical bills forcing them out of home and their 2 young daughters
You had to go there.
out of their day-to-day lives.
I just miss them. I just miss them a lot.
One single moment that has drastically changed their finances, their health, and their future. A similar moment? Doing the same to 53-year-old Gary. More than a year ago, he could actually stand on his own until a hit-and-run driver
right here, you can see it's broke.
did some serious damage to his leg.
I wish I wasn't in this situation, but a lot of people don't believe I got a broken leg.
The thing is, Gary's got the police report to prove it. He's got the x-rays to prove it. He's even got the medical bills to prove it. But there's still one question. So can you walk?
I can't.
Not at all.
No.
That will leave you wondering if you're witnessing a miracle, a scam, or maybe something else. I've seen you walk on this before.
You have? Where have you seen me walk at?
People get stories and they find the stories that are going to be the most compelling.
That's Jason Mathis. He's not a panhandler, but as executive director of the Downtown Alliance, believes the once inner-city issue is drastically spread across the entire Wasatch Front. And giving in to these sad, sad stories,
You shouldn't confuse homelessness with panhandling.
creates a false sense of charity.
I think it kind of lets people off the hook a little bit. So somebody's walking by, they give $3 or $4 to a panhandler and they think, okay, I'm a good person, I've done my duty, I don't have to worry about this again. Well, really what you may have done is enabled somebody with a substance abuse problem.
And while that may be the case for many,
I'm not a drug addict. I
Don't use drugs, huh?
Panhandlers like Daniel and his girl Ashley are very convincing as to how they use their money. They buy food and rent a room. That's it.
Some days I would just get the money just to have somewhere to sleep, and I wouldn't even eat.
So we watched Daniel for a couple of weeks, and at first his story raised some questions. Begging for money, but also texting on a smartphone, asking for food, but throwing it away. And when we followed this homeless man to a Salt Lake City house, it appeared to be a complete scam. That is until we watched him in uniform, grinding it out, washing and cleaning our car at his new job. Just like that, Daniel was off the corner, staying with family and no longer begging for cash, but instead, he was working for it.
Like seeing me right now, you guys are probably like, damn, he was scamming, or, you know, but I'm an honest person, and I think that it's always good to be honest.
All right, so at this point, what's your initial impression of the panhandlers that we followed so far? Would you give or would you look away? Keep that thought, because in 90 seconds, you will find out if this group of people begging for your money are the people that they say they are. The rest of this story may surprise you. We'll be back. Welcome back. 3 panhandlers, 3 stories, tugging at the emotions of all who drive by. Now, first impressions seem to play a major role in whether or not people give, but what we found out may leave you with a lasting impression.
Thank you very much. You guys have a great day.
A lot of people say that they make $100 to $200 a day.
Yay!
We don't come close to that.
It's been about 9 months now since Jamie and Robert lost just about everything good in their lives: his health, their home, and their 2 young girls. On cardboard, their story checks out, but would you still hand them cash if you knew their history? Between the two, they've got 15 years of felonies and arrests, including theft, burglary, forgery, DUI, and the use or possession of drugs. Ask them about their past. Have you ever been involved in drugs?
Long time ago, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was in high school in my early college years, yeah.
And they appear to be pretty honest, but it seems bad habits are often tough to shake. Within weeks of our interview, both were arrested and charged with drug crimes.
It's been a struggle since we've been out here trying not to go back down that road, because it's so easy to try to escape and just not worry about all the crap.
A few miles south, and Gary's gearing up for another day in the chair. We've already seen him walk.
What I'm saying is I can't walk, and if I try to walk, I'm going to end up falling, going out in the street again.
But Gary's problems date back nearly 2 decades before the accident. More than 70 times he has been arrested or cited, including convictions of theft, criminal trespassing, and 3 counts of sexual battery. Mentally, Gary's told the courts that he is bipolar and schizophrenic. In at least 2 cases, the judge has ordered a psychological examination.
That's where I'm at. I'm just out here trying to make money, you know.
Speaking of making money, at last check, former panhandler Daniel was making an honest living at the car wash. He was working, cleaning, scrubbing, vacuuming, and according to police,
officers say this man, 32-year-old Daniel Max Lopez,
he was also robbing,
was cuffed soon afterward.
In jail, on the news, court records claiming Daniel walked up to a woman in a parking lot with a threat. He's now charged with a first-degree felony. So ask yourself one more time, what will you do? What will you think? What will you say the next time you stop at the light? The stories and faces will likely be very different, but in many ways,
I wouldn't go out there and take people's money just to do it.
They are exactly the same.
I think that's totally wrong. I'm an honest person, and I think that it's always good to be honest.
All right, so as your impression of these panhandlers changed in the last 2 minutes, would you still give them money? If not, where do you give to help the thousands of Utahns who truly are in need, to provide them with the basics to survive and get them back on their feet? All day tomorrow, join KSL Gives Back. In every newscast, we will highlight a different organization, charity, or resource where you can give and be certain that the money will be used to help those who are in need.
Business of begging. Last night, our KSL investigation looked into the explosion of panhandlers up and down the Wasatch Front.
Yeah, but what truly lures them to the off-ramps and the street corners is often a mystery to those who are driving by. Well, tonight, one family struggled to get their daughter back.
Once in a while, there are times in life when things don't turn out exactly.
It's sad to think that it's come down to that.
The way you thought.
It just makes you wonder, you know, as parents, Did we do something wrong?
Robert and Janet Aston are those parents, and the woman hiding behind that broken piece of cardboard,
Single mom, please help.
is their daughter, Miranda. A broken marriage, a estranged son, and now homeless.
Until she decides she's hit rock bottom and changed it, we don't have a relationship.
Do you think she's hit rock bottom?
No.
During her first 4 years of life, Miranda was in and out of foster care. A cute little girl with big brown eyes and the obvious need
I opened the door, came into the foster home.
for a mother.
She come running into my arms screaming, "My new mom." And from that day, I knew she was my daughter.
That is the Miranda the Astons fell in love with so many years ago. Smart and funny, creative and happy. She could be whoever she wanted to be.
She struggled in high school, but here at home, she was always laughing, always carefree.
But insecurities during her teens is what the Astons say led Miranda to run with the wrong crowd. First, dabbling in drugs, then becoming a full-on addict.
Heroin takes over. Once they get addicted to heroin, it's just like heroin consumes them.
Rehab did not work. Therapy did not work. Miranda eventually moving out, getting married, and giving birth to a little baby boy. But that life was short-lived. Miranda left her husband, came back to her parents, and eventually lost custody of her child. Through it all, her parents say,
And that's all she's thinking about is getting heroin.
Miranda could not shake the addiction, so they made an incredibly difficult decision.
I was going to take her to the homeless shelter, and when I went to the store, came back, she was gone. So there was no goodbyes, no nothing. She just up and left.
And this is where she went, on the side of the road, standing and begging. When first approached, Miranda said very little to me.
I don't care. I don't want to talk to you.
But opened up to our producer.
You don't have any family here?
With a story we knew was not true.
If I don't do this right now, I have to sleep outside. Yeah. And I really don't want my son to have to sleep outside.
That is the forte of an addict, is lies.
What were your thoughts or emotions when you saw her that first time on the street?
Why?
Looking at Miranda now, it's hard to believe the woman behind this sign was once that same little girl so desperate for a family. Life doesn't always turn out the way we think, but it's hard to imagine anyone dreaming of a life like this.
And one day you hope this addict will become that child that you love again.
Do you believe that's possible?
Absolutely.
Now, the Astons agreed to do the interview with me in hopes that their story will help anyone who may be struggling or going through a similar situation. They also made an interesting comment here. While they clearly do not support panhandling, they say in Miranda's case here, the money she gets actually keeps her alive. It pays for food, it pays for shelter, but ultimately, they say it pays to support her drug habit.